I have photos on everyone. Oh, God. Yeah.
All right.
So,
it is Sunday morning here in Aberdeen,
Sunday.
Scotland. We got the final day of Rogue starting just over 2 hours from now. And just came from breakfast down in the hotel. And I want to start off the day by saying happy birthday to Finland's very own Joona Koski. He's turning 30 today. Gets to celebrate it out on the competition floor. Some of the athletes were giving him a hard time downstairs. Some of the older guys, welcome to the old man club and whatever. But he was smiling. He was happy. And yeah, I mean, Joona's a guy that I first met Joona back in 2017 at the games. He was in will call line trying to get some tickets for some of his family and friends who were coming. I was in the line getting our tickets for my dad and friends who were with me, and just said hi to him. I was a fan of his back then, and he took the time, had like a 5-minute conversation. It was just a nice guy. He was obviously a little younger then, and the last 2 years gotten to know him a lot better through the competition in Finland that we worked at. It's something that we've been talking about prior to this competition and throughout it here with you guys and with some people on site is, some of these athletes, especially in Europe, especially internationally, like they become the face for fitness in their country. And, obviously sometimes there's other people that rise up behind them, and Mikko Salo did come before him, but Joona kind of took it to the next level. Mikko's career was very short, and it was before the explosion of CrossFit. Joona's been here for 10 years doing this. His first games was in 2014. He's had multiple event wins. He's worn the leader jersey. He's won the European semifinals, regionals. He's podiumed at major off-season competition. Like, the guy's an absolute animal, and I felt like it would be nice to wish him a happy birthday to start things off today.
Yeah. What better way to celebrate it than, at the Rogue Invitational, right?
Yeah, and I mean, look, I don't want to. We're not here to make massive dramas or whatever, but the flip side of that is that he doesn't have Henrik Happalainen with him here this morning, and Henrik has posted on social media, so I think it's perfectly fine to talk about it. He's already back in Finland. I think they have a surgery scheduled for today, it sounds like. But I did have just a really quick conversation with him. He had a great perspective on everything, saying, hey, it could be worse, and we know that now. And he's going to get back into the swing of doing what he needs to do to get, through the recovery process, has every intention of being back. So, also as you posted on behalf of B.Friendly Fitness, sending our best for Henrik as he starts on that journey today.
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten to know Henrik pretty well. I mean, actually, the first time I got to know him, like sit down and have a conversation with him, was at Rogue in 2021. At the time, Snorri Barron, superstar manager of just a lot of the European athletes. He was the one that told me, he's like, hey, there's a lot of European athletes here, excuse me, that are available that no one's ever heard from. And then he gathered them all up, a bunch of them, not just his athletes, because at the time he wasn't representing Henrik at all. But he's like, I want you to interview him. And I sat down and we talked, and I learned so much about him. And since that time, every time we see each other, we just give each other a hug. And it's always great conversations. And he's one of those guys, most really underrated guy. He does really good in the European scene, in the European scene. And, he hasn't really had that really breakout moment at the games yet, but he was on the cusp of doing something, I think, pretty great here at Rogue. He looked really good in event 5 yesterday. And then he was looking really good in event 6, and I was really excited for him. I mean, he was looking at potentially a top 8, top 5 finish. And
yeah, it would have put him in the hunt for a top 10 spot going into the final day. He also kind of affirmed something that I thought, that the back end of the competition was actually looking better for him. I think he had said 6, 7, 8 were kind of what he thought was the sweet spot. So. It's sad. It's sad that he's not going to get to kind of fulfill that this weekend. But,
But on the flip side, like you said, if you know Henrik, like you said, he put up a post and what he said in the post. It's who he is. I mean, he's a very optimistic guy. He's not going to sit there and say, "Oh, feel sorry for me." He's gonna, he's taking this as a challenge, and he's gonna overcome it, and he's gonna come back better. On the flip side, we don't know what's going on with Gabby, and nor we don't want to, she has, again, like we've said before, we'll leave it up to the athletes to tell their story unless they give us permission to do it. And Gabby's,
I mean, no, they've taken different approaches to that. Henrik was very open, public, and talking about it. Gabby's chosen not to be. I saw some people saying, "I hope that we see her out there today." I just walked past her downstairs. She's on crutches. Like,
yeah,
I don't think she's. I don't think it's even if she could. I don't think it's the smart decision to take the competition for. We saw what happened with Rebecca Vidison at the semifinal. Like, sometimes it's just better to call it, evaluate it, and move on. So we don't know the extent of it, but we saw what happened.
Yeah. So, I wanted to put something like, and I reposted what Henrik put up in our well wishes, but obviously, people that know me, know you, we're really big Gabby fans, not just as an athlete, but also as a person. She's just really cool. I got to know last night. I got to meet her mom, dad, and her little brother. And yeah, I mean, it just sucks for her. But
And for
again,
fans, I mean, look, I think she's been winning fans over in the past couple seasons. She's clearly getting better. We talked about it yesterday morning. She's the one that's breathing down Tia's neck. She's a few seconds behind her here, a few seconds behind her here, putting pressure on the top spot. It was, whatever else is going on, it was setting up for a really epic finish, I think, between her and Laura this weekend. And, we are, going to miss out on that. But that's not in times like this, like, that's not the most important thing. We hope that she's able to, make the best decisions, get the best care, do what needs to be done. And same as Henrik is, come back stronger.
yeah. And the cool thing about these two is they're both former, like high end athletes in a different realm. Him being a a skateboarder. He's also done some other sports, and then Gabby as a really high level tennis player. So they understand like sports and injuries. This isn't the first time they've suffered anything like this in terms of in their career. So they'll be surrounded by the best care. They'll be surrounded, and the cool thing about CrossFit is that CrossFit's one of those things where the rehab process is fitness. So that's something they're immediately going to jump into. I mean, rehab's the hardest part of receiving an injury, besides the emotional toll and stuff like that. But with rehab, and like I said, you've had injuries, I've had injuries where the sooner you can start rehab, and you're smart, try not to overextend yourself. You'll come back better than ever. And historically, people that suffer Achilles injuries, which we know that is the case with Henrik. We don't know for sure on Gabby, is that it's a long process, but those athletes come back stronger than ever. I mean, like I said, we can mention Kobe Bryant. I mean, there's Aaron Rodgers. The list goes on and on in terms of athletes that suffered Achilles. Kirk Cousins from other sports. Aaron Rodgers almost came back within freaking like 4 months.
Same season, yeah.
Yeah, same season. Yeah, but I'm just saying, not to put a timetable on their thing, because they're different people, different things. But it's not one of these. It's not one of these injuries where it's going to affect them their whole life or anything like that. It's not like an Achilles or MCL or anything like that. This is something where it's a simple procedure to get fixed, but it's a very grueling rehab. Maybe that's something in the future we could bring on Bill Leahy to kind of talk about his process. If you guys are, obviously he infamously tore his Achilles at West semifinal, and he's on the road recovery. I believe Hiller's actually visiting him this weekend or something like that. So
yeah, that'd be cool. I know they have a good friendship, and Hiller helps athletes tell great stories when he goes on those trips.
Yeah, that's a timetable. That's typically the timetable. So But yeah, but yeah,
Well,
nothing.
let's shift to some more positive stuff.
Yes.
Patrick and I went out for dinner last night, and I came back and I was feeling inspired to write an article, and I was just having some ideas while Patrick was, navigating the streets of Aberdeen, and wrote an
Sorry.
article we put up this morning, and it was about athletes who had standout performances on day 2 of competition. I looked back at the last 2 years because Rogue kind of took a shift in the 2022 year. They went to basically having more events. They had 10 events that year. They've had 9 last year and 9 advertised this year. And in each of those 3 seasons, there were 3 events on day 2 of competition. The first 2 years, there were only 4 athletes who had finishes 9th or better, all single digit finishes during those seasons. The first year was actually all 4 women. You can see them there: Laura, Annie, Ellie, and Alexis. Alexis. The second year was a split, men and women 2-2, Vellner and Travis Mayer, Manu Nangonis and Christine Kohlenbrander. So not maybe all the names that you would have expected.
Mm-hmm.
And then I listed out how they ended up finishing that year. I think all of them except for Kohlenbrander ended up in the top 10, and she was 11. So obviously having a strong day 2 of competition is going to go a long way. I didn't spend too much time in this article focusing on Tia-Clair Toomey and Jeff Adler. I have a feeling I'm going to write an article probably about them, or maybe separately with some other today or tomorrow. But I do want to say, following up on our conversation from yesterday, that they are the only 2 athletes remaining in the field who have a chance to have all single digit finishes this year. If they do that, it'll be Tia's 3rd time doing that. If Jeff does it, he'll become the 7th unique athlete who's ever achieved that at a Rogue Invitational. So we'll be tracking that today. Also worth mentioning that it looks like either Jeff or Ricky is going to win on the men's side. And if either of them do win, then they're going to, if they do win, wait, what? That means that you're here. Oh, you should say hi. If either Jeff or Ricky do win, they'll become the 6th unique winner on the CrossFit side of the Rogue Invitational. It is the most exclusive club in terms of athletes who ever won it. For women, it's only been Tia and Laura so far. Looks like Tia's going to do that again. And then on the men's side, Fraser won the first one, Vellner's won 2, Medeiros is 1-2. So there's some pretty historic things that are being tracked this weekend in terms of what Adler in specific could achieve if he has another strong day and ends up winning this thing.
Yeah. So who stood out to you on day 2?
Yeah, and the reason I didn't spend so much time on Tia and Jeff is because they were in first and they're still in first. But these 4 athletes all had great days that really saw significant moves up the leaderboard. They're not necessarily in any specific order, but I just wrote about Brent first. He was the only male athlete who did that yesterday besides Jeff. And he went from 8th to 4th. And look, like, he's 33 years old. He's been doing this a dozen years. He already announced his retirement. We had another really athletic, demanding, sprinty style workout last night. A long workout in the morning. The grip demand, like, the guy's he had an 18th place finish yesterday. He's been top 6 on everything else, and he's hunting a podium again at the Rogue Invitational. Kiki said yesterday on the stream that he's a staple here. He's not a staple here. It's only a 2nd year, but in 2 years, he was tied for 3rd on points and finished 4th yesterday, and he's in 4th right now. Just add it to the resume that we put out. This guy is as consistent as they come. He might not always win, but he's always lurking around. You can never count him out. He said he'll fight for every point. The crazy thing is he potentially left 25 points on the table yesterday. He was less than a half a second behind Yonakoski on the row thruster, and they weren't in the same heat. So they weren't like, that's a tough one to kind of swallow, I think. And then in the Sear Bell workout with the rope climbs, there were 5 guys within, a rep or 2 of each other going to the rope climbs. He ended up taking 4th out of those 5 guys. And obviously, like, he just wasn't good enough to beat those other 3 guys, but like, he was that close to it being even better day. He's as good as they come at managing longevity of not just a career, but also a competition weekend. I expect him to do well this morning. And man, if he could find a way onto that podium, when you got guys like Ricky and Jeff and Dallin, who are like, they look like just assassins across the board. I think cumulatively, those 3 guys have a worse. Ricky has an 11. Dallin has 2 10ths. Jeff's worst finish is 9th. And Brent's competing with these guys, like, legitimately in the fight for a podium today.
Yeah, and it kind of reaffirms what he was saying. It's like, when he announced his retirement, it's like, hey, I'm in the best shape of my life. I'm peaking at the right time. And it reaffirms that. I mean, not that anyone doubt that. I mean, again, this guy was, winning the games up until the final event and then finish, third. And he's looking at that right now. Possibly finishing on the podium. And what a way to kind of go out, with a podium again, especially at a competition where, he doesn't have a very successful history because his history is only one previous, and and he had to use the qualifier to get there. Um, so this is no, I'm rooting for him. I really am. And
And I think everyone is. I mean, it was very cool and also very genuine what happened with him and Guy last night. He
yeah,
finished the workout, he points to the crowd, he points at Guy, he gives him a hug, and he lets out this like primal yell. Like
yeah,
I don't think like that's a moment where you're just out of body and you're just like doing what feels right. And his interview is perfect. He's like he's faster, he's younger, he's stronger, and I'm trying as hard as I can. And
yeah.
he said, and what did he say? How did he close out that interview? Um, Man, I can't remember the last thing he said. Oh, he said, "This is." She asked you like, "What's one of your best memories?" And he's like, "Honestly, this moment right here is up there."
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and I think he genuinely meant that. Like he somehow has this ability
He
to
lives in the moment.
know. Yes, despite everything else that's going on, he's extremely present to what's happening when he's out there on the competition floor every time.
Yeah, and it was unfortunate because I hate to play favorites, during a competition, especially, um, but on that final event, I knew, or that, yeah, event 6 against him and Guy, I knew he wasn't going to win. But I'm really rooting for him because I wanted him to get that moment on top of that, because I mean, what a cool place, because those steps, it would just been him singular there. I mean, we saw how athletes were reacting when they got up there and they won and they hit that button. It was like all eyes were on them, and that was a cool thing about that event. And you can say what you can about the event itself or the dual format, but the way that sets itself up is like, if you win, you're there. It's like you get to soak in that moment. But it was cool that he still got a moment and got it with Guy. She just shared it with Guy because even though Guy won, you know,
His
Guy was
teammate, his teammate from 2 months ago.
exactly. Team World. They were able to get there just and share it together, and it was pretty cool. And it was almost like because Guy's only what 24 years old still. It's hard to imagine. Yeah, I just think about it. He's 24 years old, but that's
Hey, and we're
me.
not,
That's
and we didn't feature Guy in this article
yeah.
because he didn't have as good of a day as the athletes that did get this feature. But
Hmm.
I mean, we have to reemphasize like it's also his second Rogue Invitational. He
Hmm.
got fifth the only other time he competed. He won the duel the only other time he competed. He's well known. He's had three top three finishes now, or in 2 event wins. Like when you do
Yeah,
that, Brent and Guy are both that guy. They can win events, and they've been winning
yes.
events since they showed up on the scene, and it keeps them relevant and in the top hunt. Um, so Guy, it was a really cool moment for them. You mentioned the dual four, and I want to say that from my perspective, and I think it's reflective of the community in general, there have been two big criticisms of the dual format at Rogue. One of them is the buy that they used to give to the top five. They got rid of that this year,
Yeah,
and I love that. And we
bravo.
saw actually, I don't know if Halpin's posted it, but he did send it to me that he has the trajectory of every athlete's time by round,
Yeah.
and you see this kind of like they get better and then they get worse as they get tired, and they're getting better because they're adapting to it on the
Mhm.
fly. That's what the top athletes were getting. Kind of, I think they were getting the worst end of having that buy, because the 10 athletes that made it through the original 15 now had a slight advantage over having done it
Yeah.
once and learned from it. Well, they hadn't had their hands on it yet, and so we saw some of those top athletes like Tia and Vellner and Adler and over the years just like get eliminated in 11th when they only had one chance to do it against people who'd improved by a second to two in their second
Mhm.
run at it. So Rogue had listened to that feedback, and they have improved on that, I think, in this version. So I was happy about that. The other one that always gets criticized of the duel, and look, it's better now than it was in the first year, but I still think there's room for improvement, is the amount of time between rounds.
Yeah.
And I think that to me, there may be better options, and I'm sure people may have better ideas, but I think the amount of time they had between those rounds, you could have alternated men's round one, women's round one, men's round two, women's round two, and gone through it that way and reduced the total time of the event by maybe a third. So it would be like an hour and a half instead of 2 hours and 15 minutes or something like that. And kept, like, Lauren Smith is doing an amazing job at a very hard job of getting the crowd in and keeping the excitement high. Yeah, I couldn't do that job.
Yes.
But it still is a lot of time between those rounds, and I would be, curious about brainstorming some different ideas to like reduce that time, because they're exciting events, but those long time gaps do kind of add up.
Yeah, it kind of deflates the situation. I mean, especially a lot, in previous years. Like you said, Lauren does a good job of filling in those gaps when there is kind of a dead time. But I also think the crowd is they're just, it's such an energetic crowd and a very a good crowd. You have to keep them engaged. But I like that idea. I think JR kind of mentioned the same thing too on Sevon's podcast as well, as that's what he would want to see as well. But the thing is, I think what it comes down to is like when you're moving equipment on and off, I think it adds up where you're probably going to only end up saving maybe 2 or 3 minutes at the back end. Because think about it, if Rogue, it's not just replacing a sandbag, but it's doing it for like a lot. It's you're in that case you're replacing.
I think there are other workarounds actually.
Yeah,
but I don't want to like dwell on it too much. I want to give them credit for addressing one of the things that they've regularly been criticized for with the Duel, and just acknowledge that I would be curious about the conversations that have gone on about how to reduce that time. And if there are, I have some other ideas that I think could potentially help, but I'm not sure, because there's always factors that until you're in those rooms having those conversations that you're not aware of. So I think it's okay to say both sides of those things, and that overall the event was electric when the athletes were on the floor and competing. And two of the women that ended up top two there are two of the women that we featured in our article last night. We'll start with Laura, because she had popped up in this scenario 2 years ago. She had a first, second in 2022 on day two of competition en route to her first Rogue championship. And good morning, Carolyn. And yesterday in the morning, I said, don't be surprised if Laura wins all three events today. Well, as soon as I saw Tia's strategy on the log muscle ups and how fast she was doing those singles, I knew that everyone was playing for second place on that one. Laura got second, and she went on to go first the remainder of the day. So I missed on that call. I'm probably going to resign tomorrow.
Yeah, you should.
But look,
you're back down to junior analyst with me.
Last year, she had 4 straight event wins in the middle of the competition. Her interview is backing up her performance. She said, like, that things are about to change. I might not have had the perfect day one, but I'm still here. I'm still relevant. I'm still fighting. I still know that I can win. And we just have to throw it out there. We asked before the competition on the show we did with Carolyn and Alexis, will Tia plus Laura have 7 wins this weekend out of 9? Or I guess I said more than 6, or 6 or less. We've had 6 events. They've got 6 wins. So as long as one of them wins today, it's going to be the over. And there's still a chance that nobody else wins an event this weekend.
How crazy would that be?
Crazy.
One thing I'll say about Laura is she's probably one of the few probably the only athlete in the field right now that actually believes she can win.
She does. I mean, and you can hear it in every. She doesn't talk when she doesn't have to talk, but when she gets the chance to talk, she lets it be known that she's here to win, and she really, really does believe that she can.
No, she really does. I mean, that's not cockiness. That's not her just like reaffirming herself or saying what she's supposed to do. Because other athletes, they know when Tia's there. It's like, okay, we're all fighting for second. Laura can beat Tia. She's done it in the past. She knows it's a fight, and it's fun and exciting, and it's just great. Yeah, it's really weird, the dynamic between like her and Tia, and when it comes to competition, because obviously Tia's more well-rounded. It's Tia. She's the freaking GOAT, And then, and Laura is just trying to get to that status, but it's mind blowing. One thing I want to bring
This
up,
is this is exactly right. She can win
exactly.
all the events today, but if some of the other women don't rise to the occasion, then it's not, the gap's too big for her to make it up on her own. So
Yeah.
she'll need some other athletes to do really, really well, or for Tia to, have another finish like she had last night, which was 8th and allowed for a 40-point closing of the gap.
Well, that's what we talked about with Alexis. The only possible when Alexis was on and Caroline was the scenario that we saw that Tia wouldn't win is when someone like Gabby and Laura like work together, inadvertently or but now Gabby's not there, so it's going to be harder for Laura to kind of make up that distance because if Gabby's there, it's helping her, maybe middle or it's going to get her because right now you got 300 points. She's how many points down?
I think it was 60.
60. So you're talking for her to have a real chance, she probably needs in each event probably like two or three people middling a spot
Like
between her
I agree
and
with, yeah, I agree with this, but what we're talking about is that Laura believes in herself.
yeah.
And
Yes.
it's awesome to see that, regardless of if it's realistic or not, or if the math adds up. You have to have that mentality that David's describing here, of self belief, and I think Laura has exhibited that in the past, and she's continuing to this weekend.
Yeah. One thing
The
I wanted to bring
from
up, I don't know if you read the post that I put up regarding the duel and the history of Guy and Laura in the duel. Did you see that little little figures I pulled up?
Yeah, it's actually woven into this article as well.
Oh, cool.
So
But like Laura Horvath, this is the fourth iteration of duel. And like you said, she's won it twice prior. And then the other two times she finished second, one to Tia in 2021, and then last year to Danny Spiegel. But her record, I believe, was it 15-2 in
yeah,
duels.
I mean, she's been the queen of the duel. I mean, she didn't win them all, but you're in the finals 4 out of 4 times.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, and we had said that coming into the weekend, we didn't know event 6, we didn't know event 9, and I threw out some stat there about her performances in the duel, the
Hmm.
strongman event, and the final. That she's been first, second, or third on all of those 3 events over the
Yeah.
last 3 or 4 seasons, which is like where you look and say, "Ooh, I don't know about the wall walk complex." Well, she can't beat Tia on the running workout, but there's some other workouts that likely haven't been announced yet that are going to be home runs for her. We're 1 for 1 on the 2 opportunities. I still think the last event today is going to have some moderately heavy cleans for reps of some kind, and that it's going to be that workout in particular. If it ends up being that, is going to be another battle between her and Tia for the win. And
Yeah.
Tia will remember that she was in the fight last year until the final, and
Mhm.
that's where Laura got her. And as much as people are like kind of making fun of Tia for saying she's the underdog, like she kind of has, like you can't discount Tia's mentality either. Like she still hasn't had the chance to take the floor and take a title back from Laura. She was
Mhm.
deprived of that at the games. She, 2 years ago, she just had to watch as Laura won while she was pregnant. And then last year at Rogue, under superhuman circumstances, she tried, but she came up short. So this is, while we're not, someone made a comment about the conversation that Lucy and I had yesterday. We're not taking anything away from Tia. I'm just waiting until Tia wins and see how impressive this weekend is to write and talk about her in totality. But she's coming here with a different mindset, and her mindset is, I need to take what's mine back, and she
Mhm.
hasn't finished the job yet.
Yeah, and that's how we talked about the Mamba mentality. It's the Michael Jordan mentality with Tia. It's like she knows she's good. She knows that she's the favorite, but at the same time, she's relishing this moment where she's being pushed by Gabby and Laura right now because she hasn't had that since 2017 when she basically broke through when it was her and Cara, in that final of the games, and Cara was I mean, the two people that have beaten her over the last since 2017 has been Cara in regionals of 2017, and then Laura last year. That's it. Those are only two people that have beaten her in live competitions since 2017. It's ridiculous. So that's how she's meant. I mean, that's what the best do. And I agree with you. I think there's 2 workouts here that favor today that are going to favor Laura, and Laura has a possibility of winning. Now, her winning that, will that lead to an overall victory? The math says no. However,
Well, here's the thing. We talked about this in the preview, that there are some potentially high penalty movements today.
yeah,
And this is one of them.
the pegboard. Yeah. But what the point I was getting at, even if Laura finishes second, think about it. She had won what, 4 events to Tia's possible 5, and you end on a winning note. I mean, tell me that doesn't build confidence. Yes, you lose overall, but you went toe to toe, with the GOAT, and it's just, and yeah, Tia complete. If you look at it, remember a couple of years ago, we were talking about Tia stepping away, and now we're seeing, especially since Tier Cup, we're seeing a Tia that is, I mean, and I'm pretty sure this is something you're going to write about, but we're seeing like a new version of Tia where she's having fun, and at the same time, I don't know. I think she relishes these new challenges that are coming up, because it seems like every year it's like a new challenge. Someone's like, oh, this person has a chance. A couple of years ago it was Mal O'Brien, it was Emma Lawson, now it's Laura and Gabby, and it's just great. Like who's going to be the next breakout? Breakout woman. I mean, this is great.
You know what I I feel really privileged to be able to be close to the floor and watch these little details and nuances that people can see. And I am still curious. And if you guys are watching from home, I'm curious if some of this comes across. But like, Tia is hyper aware of what Laura is doing at every point of the workout. And one little thing that I noticed yesterday, she was so far ahead on that rowing workout, and she got off the rower and ran to the finish line. She was leaving no doubt. And if you contrast that with Dallin Pepper's finish, who did all the work to earn that second place, and it was incredibly impressive. And he kind of was gloating and gliding into the finish line, and Jeff almost chased him down.
Yeah.
And you see the difference there. Like, Tia is not taking anything for granted.
No.
She knows how good Laura is.
Yeah. Well, I think that's also Tia. Tia does not just, she wants to dominate. She wants to leave it all out there too. And and so every second does count for her. It may not look like it, I mean, it may not reflect that on a leaderboard, but that's part of her aura. Just part of her being is like, hey, I want people to look up there and like, I got my ass beat by freaking Tia. Not that Tia beat me, I got my ass beat. But okay, but yeah, we can sit there and talk about this all day, and we need to save this for
we'll talk about
later
those two
show.
again.
Yeah.
But we need to talk about Emma Tall, because Emma Tall was actually the athlete that was in my mind that was the impetus for writing this article in general. Let me just make sure I get it right. I think I have the men's leaderboard up right now, but she came into the day in 16th place, and her best finish on day 1 was 8th. Keep in mind, she's a rookie at Rogue. In 3 consecutive events yesterday, she set a personal best in terms of her event finishes in her Rogue career. She was 7th in the morning. She took 4th in the second event, and then she took 2nd in the duel to Laura in the nightcap. All 3 of the events, she's battling, and this is going to be true about the last female athlete that we talked about also, which is Alex Gazan. They're battling from the first heat. And it's like, I mentioned in the article, I think that the fact that they both had such good days and they were in the same heat was mutually beneficial for them. But in the morning event, on the row and the thruster, Alex ended up pulling ahead and winning that. It appeared, in case anyone was curious about this, I just want to clarify what I think happened. It appeared that Emma got second in the heat because she was about 1 step away from crossing the finish line. Amanda Barnhart was in that heat and clearly was behind her on the event. She finished the row but never got off the row. And yet Amanda Barnhart is showing 6th place on that workout to Emma Tall's 7th place. I had a little bit of a debate with a friend of mine about this, because to me, the reason why Amanda Barnhart is ahead of Emma Tall on the leaderboard for that workout is because the tiebreak was designated as the split time after the log muscle ups, and both of them ended up with cap +0 because they finished the row but didn't get across the finish line. Emma Tall ran 19 of those 20 meters, or 19 of those 20 feet, whatever the distance is, and came up 1 step short. Amanda Barnhart didn't take a single step of that distance. So Emma Tall, in my opinion, did more work and got less points. However, the counter argument that my friend was making is the athletes were briefed on the workout. They knew the rules. The tiebreak was the muscle ups. They both did not get the final rep, which was crossing the finish line. And so per the rules, Amanda did beat her on the workout. It just looked kind of weird.
I want to kind of like look like Emma's close to tears or something. Emma's hasn't had she hasn't had a career. It's been a rough career for her. Or rough, the last couple of years, whether it be dealing with injuries and just other things. So I always make a point every time I see her is just kind of like just say hi and just talk and ask how she's doing. She is an athlete that wears her emotions on her sleeves out on the floor. I mean, we saw that. I mean, we saw that Tier SoCal. She was close with Lazar. David, her partner, was also really close, and she's close with Gabby. I mean, these European athletes have a very good. It's a widespread network because of all the regionals. But they compete a lot against each other because they do so many competitions against each other. So they run into each other. They get to know each other. So it, she did not. No athlete wanted to see that, but Emma is one of those athletes that wears it on her sleeve, and she's also one of these athletes. She knows she doesn't have much longer into sport. She's on the older side, but she's relishing all the moments. But in terms of the tears and emotions, that's just who she is, and she's leaving it out there. And I applaud her and I applaud David because we're walking back and we ran into him, and I was joking around giving David kind of like, David, great job today. We're laughing and stuff like that. But he does a good job of helping her out and stuff like that. And that's her when she's focused. He tries to be in her line of sight whenever she's competing, and that's her guiding light there. And I just want to say, I was really extremely proud of her yesterday. Just showing what she was capable of doing.
Yeah, and I mean, I see this comment here, Sweetie Pippi thinking that she's going to drop a lot on the leaderboard today. She might, but the last 2 years at semifinals in Europe, 2 years ago, she was within 20 points of Laura Horvath. Laura took third, Emma took fourth. Last year, she was within 20 points of Gabby. Gabby took second, Emma took third. She's, when we say that Gabby has been nipping at the heels of Tia, Emma has been nipping at the heels of Laura and Gabby in Europe at the semifinal level for the last 2 seasons. She hasn't had the same success at the games. It's her first year at Rogue, so there's definitely some unknowns and some reasons to potentially think that. But Emma Tall is extremely talented, extremely fit. She didn't get phased by the fact that she had a bad day one. She came out and from what I could tell, she had a second place heat finish and then a first place heat finish. I did want to, if anyone's in the comments, I would be curious to know if you guys were okay with the really aggressive time caps yesterday, or if you would have liked to seen 1 more minute on each of those to get more athletes across the line. For my opinion, we've talked about Rogue being a showcase, and I think that fans really love seeing athletes finish and getting a chance to cheer them across the line. 2/3 of the athletes got caught on the rower, 1 more minute, and about another third of them finish. And I think 2 women and maybe also 2 or 3 men, or no, 2 women and 5 men or something like that finished the middle event yesterday. An extra minute gets people across. So Emma wins that, but she doesn't get to cross the finish line in that heat either. So it wasn't that climactic. And then she had the nightcap. She went from 16th to 4th in 1 day. And when, Gabby's going to be out of the competition, that's going to end up being kind of like third. And she's in the podium hunt. I mean, it was an incredible day, one of the best days of her career.
To make a big jump like that at Rogue with the quality of athletes and level of athletes here, it's huge. People don't really understand. It's like, oh yeah, it's like you expect that. At the games, you see that a lot more at the games because one's a little bit longer competition, but you have more athletes in between that can get in between. So that so for that to happen here, I mean, she's jumping athletes like Brooke Wells, Danielle Brandon. I mean, these aren't just like middling athletes. These are some of the best athletes in the world. So for her to jump from 16 to 4th, I mean, that's a huge deal, especially going to the final day. Conversely, there's with such a big jump like that in day 2, with 300 points, there can also be a a fall as well going into the final day. I don't foresee that
So
too
let's
much
see.
on this. I don't think there'll be too much discrepancy because I think now athletes are kind of settled in where it's kind of yesterday was truly a moving day, but I don't think you'll see any dramatic changes like from like 4th to 16th or anything like that.
We'll
You
see.
could,
I mean,
but I think right.
well, let's go to Alex Gazan because she's the last athlete we wrote
Yeah,
about here. And
yeah.
I am going to kind of disagree. Alex Gazan earned 130 points on day 1. She earned 230 points on day 2. And there's 300 points available today, and I definitely think there are athletes that could have a similar flip-flop. Maybe Haley Adams. Haley had a good day 1, a bad day 2. If she has a good day 3, she could climb right back into that top 10. So we're
Good
only at
point.
the 2. We've done 2 out of 3 laps. There's still 300 points available, and we mentioned Alex. We talked about Alex. I think we both picked her. I think I picked her 4th. You might have picked her 6th or 5th or something. But we had her up
Mhm.
there in the mix of like the next, maybe potentially winning that next group of athletes behind the perceived top 3 on the women's side. It wasn't a great day 1, but just like Emma Tall, out of the first heat, the lower heat yesterday, she had an incredible performance, and she's actually tied on points with Ariel Lowen now. She's behind her by a
Mhm.
tiebreak of 1 spot in terms of best event finish, but they're only 15 points behind Emma Tall. We talked about like Gazan is in the hunt for potentially a podium spot this year, which would also, I think, end up being the best finish of her career if she's able to do that.
Oh, yeah. Especially after such a brutal day 1. I mean, she ended day 1 pretty much in tears because she had a really bad no rep and just kind of yeah. I mean, this would probably be a huge accomplishment for her if she could do that. Even finishing 4th or just a climb for her. So yeah, but the article's up. I'll put a post up promoting it. Yeah, today at some point. Um, but
It's a little longer. It's a little longer than 2 I wrote yesterday, but it's so
definitely worth
we
reading.
mention it. We mention it every time we talk about road. It's so hard just to get here. And when athletes do something like these athletes did in one day of competition, to me, it's worth celebrating. It's like I said, it might be the single best day of some of these athletes' careers up to this point. It could potentially transition into the best event finish in the most competitive field of their career. So, and it makes it exciting. Like we have, I mentioned a 15-point gap between Tall, Lowen, and Gazan, and a really, really sneaky athlete right behind that, and Manon Angonis, who she's becoming more and more relevant each year at Rogue. So I'm pretty excited to see how the middle group there in the women's field traces out today. But I want to. Did you have time to write these essays? I don't know. I don't know. I just like doing it. I saw that someone was asking about the testing of the workouts, and her time would have been on the better end. Carolyn tested on Alexis saying, look, I mean, like I said, there's always variables with the workouts, and it's easy to sit there. And I was sitting there yesterday saying, man, and a lot of people around me were too. I wish that there was one more minute here. I wish there'd be more people to finish. Someone pushed back on that in our little group and said, hey, it's kind of cool to see the athletes are human and that they can't beat the time cap and they get capped because I get capped in workouts all the time. So I like knowing they're like kind of like me. I was like, oh, that's a unique perspective. And whether you're finishing the row or selling out for every last meter on the row, it's still painful to end on the row. I just think that like in this event in general at Rogue, if you can get the athletes across the finish line, it's great. Maybe there's some variables with the total time of the day that have to be considered, but it's only 2 heats per division. We're only asking for 1 more minute. So anyway, can we pull up the men's leaderboard? Are you muted? I think you're muted, Patrick. Patrick, why are you muted?
Hey, I got. I just yeah. Just go ahead and talk. Sorry.
Okay. Earlier, we were having a conversation about. I don't know where Patrick had to go. Maybe he'll be back. Maybe not. But we were talking about how Laura and Tia could potentially go on to win every event this weekend. And in the run up to the competition, we had mentioned that that was likely going to be the battle. Maybe Gabby would be in that mix. But on the men's side, that it was a totally different ball game. There's so many different athletes that people thought had a chance to win or podium here, and the total opposite has happened. Through 6 events, we've had 6 unique winners of each of the events, and we've spent some time talking about a few of them, and we're going to, of course, spend some more time. Actually, we have had 5 winners through 6 events. Excuse me. We'll spend some more time talking about Jeff, but I want to take a minute to talk about Ricky Garrard. He's won 2 of these events. I think he's the only athlete on the men's side who's won 2 of them. They were the first one where he barely edged out Jeff, and then they were the 4th one, which the 4th one I thought was going to be a good workout for him because he's so good on that log muscle up. I don't know how he has figured out how to do it like a kip and get 5 in a row. I think Vellner actually did 3s throughout the entire workout, which was also very impressive. But Ricky went like 5, 3, 2, 2, and then was able to do singles the rest of the way and just keep slightly ahead of the field. Once he got to the thrusters in the row, I'm not saying it wasn't painful, but you could kind of like leverage that small advantage and go to the event win. I want to take some like ownership for the fact that I think I underestimated Ricky coming into Rogue this year. I had said that this was a competition I didn't think he could win on paper, and he's more or less has made me feel like I'm wrong about that up to this point. Last year at Rogue, I think I was kind of discounting the fact how maybe not 100% his shoulder was coming in there after the motorcycle injury, the motorbike injury a few months prior to that. And, you know, there's really, when I look at the totality of the second half of his career after coming back from the suspension, even last year at Dubai, he gave away, do you have something on in the background?
No.
I think, I don't know. It sounded like there was an echo or something.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, there's definitely some kind of echo. Maybe log off and come back in.
Bye.
Even last year in Dubai, where it looked like he lost to Roman by a bunch of points, he gave away almost all those points on a mountain bike. Thank you, SPM. He gave away almost all those points on one technical error on a obstacle course that they never had their chance to go on before, and he still clawed his way back all the way to second place from second to last at the start of the workout. He's been relevant in pretty much every competition that he's been healthy at throughout that point. And I actually think him and Jeff both got a little unfortunate. And I'm not saying it was a bad decision, but when they switched to the burpees, it looked like they had a chance to have like a 4th, 5th, 6th finish on that event. And they ended up dropping down to 8th and 9th respectively in the workout. I feel the competition is not as heavy as other years. That's an interesting observation and question. Maybe a good one to evaluate once we see what the final is. But Patrick, I don't know if you were looking or listening to all that, but basically I was saying I think I've underestimated Ricky coming into this thing.
I think a lot of people did, just based off his historical thing. But I think for the first time in a while, he's come in here 100% healthy. We know that he beats himself up. The games are it wears down on people, and some people it takes a little bit longer to recover. I think also it being pushed back, just being pushed back from its normal weekend. You know, it's obviously a week a little bit longer, and Ricky, take some time off and not worrying about competitions. Yes, he did do he did do the team competition with the annual at Down Under, but his volume of competitions and what he's done, he's actually taken back. His recovery time from the games has been a lot more smart. He's not pushing his body and because in previous years he was either hurt or as soon as the game was over, he was like, I'm going right back to training. I'm going to win the games next year. And I think this year is a little bit different. I think, his partner, his fiance, Michelle, has also been a big part of that in terms of like, hey, let's enjoy this ride we're on. And, those who know Ricky, it's like everywhere he travels, she comes with him, and they were actually being a lot more, they're enjoying themselves. They're living in that moment. And I think that's what he's doing now. And I think that's what you're seeing here. Ricky is, he's enjoying this, and I underestimated him too, because, on paper and historically, Ricky doesn't do well because of the Rogue crushes you. We saw it when Rogue was 11 events and it was just heavy stuff. And you actually had a lot of athletes and coaches saying, hey, this is not what we signed up for, because, a lot of these athletes have only been training for the last 2-3 weeks hard for this. So
I think athletes have adapted to that. I think that
yes,
they know that.
100%.
I mean, Rogue is a tough competition. You can see,
and it should be.
Vellner's I think is pretty open about where he's at in his training cycles and coming off of tier. And he's always got stuff going on in his life too. But he was like, no, I'm getting into some serious training here. He came over here 2 weeks early. Like he is prepping. And I think he's kind of a representative of a lot of the athletes that they are prepping for this, knowing it's going to be tough, but knowing that the payoff is huge if you're able to win or podium.
Yeah. I mean, payoff, literally and figuratively, hope so. Yeah. But
looking at the kind of the just outside the podium race here, I mean, Brent is within 10 points of Dallin. I do want to talk about Dallin, but I kind of want to, similar to Jeff, I kind of want to let Dallin finish the weekend before evaluating the total performance and talking about his ceiling, peak potential, whatever. But I'm looking at this kind of battle. Hopper's in 5th, and he's had one really bad event. He took 19th. Guy's in 6th. He's had one really bad event. He took 20th. They both have also had first, second, third, and first, third, fourth place finishes, which is why they're relevant in this battle here. And then you have Vellner. Vellner's done nothing very good. 4th place is his best finish. It was last night in the Duel, where it was like a little bit like, you didn't even get to really celebrate him. I don't think he won any of the heats that he was in individually. He was just good. And then 11th is his worst. So he hasn't had anything really bad, but he's on 390 points, only 15 points away from Hopper. It doesn't look, we mentioned yesterday, something just looks off with him, and yet he's still Mr. Consistent here. Are you more, do you think that, the consistency of Vellner pays off today, or that Guy and Jason are more likely to hit another home run and kind of fend him off by the end of Sunday?
I think Jason, I mean, it's kind of funny because Jason's in 5th and Vellner's in 7th. So like Vellner's occupying Jason's spot. But I think Jason, I mean, we talked to him yesterday. He got his one bad event out of the way. I mean, yeah, he had a 12th, but his 19th, he knew that. He knew going in, he sucks at those logs. Those logs are that's his downfall. And he knew that. And he actually, he was joking with it. He's like, hey, I didn't get last. And then he said in his interview after the win, is like, I sulked for like 2 hours after that. And, just thinking about how bad I suck.
Damn.
But then he comes back and he hits that home run. I mean, that's just Jason Hopper now, man. He's like, we always talk about Guy hitting home runs. Jason's just can do it just as much, and probably more often because of his level of fitness. But
the way he won that event to me was like, I have a tremendous respect for that style of win. He wasn't winning. He was like, it was kind of like Sam Cornway and his heat in the first event. Like, he wasn't winning ever.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, the last 5% of the workout, he just turned it on. And the last 3 reps of that movement were rope climbs. If you listen to him, watch his behind the scenes stuff, if you talk with JR, they have been hammering that specific thing, the upper body pulling under fatigue. And he obviously didn't get to show it off on the log muscle up, but I think that's a little bit of a nuanced thing. But the grip fatigue, the upper body pulling under stress at the end of a workout, when 5 of the best guys on earth were all batting for that, for him to come out on top there, like, that's to me is the moment of the weekend for him, and a nice moment that hopefully is somewhat affirming of all the work that they've been putting in that domain in the gym.
And one thing that was great about that win is, like, obviously you're going against a time cap, so you're pushing your body. He crossed that finish line. He didn't collapse. He didn't get down to a knee. He didn't put his hands on his knee. He just stood there. He had more in the tank. That was the crazy thing about that. It's like he did not.
It was reminiscent of the events that he won that first year at the MAC semifinal, where he crossed the line, beating some of the best guys on the planet at that time. They were on the floor, and he was standing there like, yeah, what about it?
Yeah. And that's what that was the thing. That was the moment that, that MAC, those are the moments that stood out. And he was really, and I talked to him about that back then. He's like, yeah, I do that on purpose. I want them to kind of see, like, hey, you're on the ground. I'm still standing here over. He's like, I'm dead tired, but I'm not going to show it, and I think right now his fitness is its peak. I think what JR and Marconi and, what they have going on is great. And it's shown because, like I said, he wasn't the best upper body puller, but then you started seeing that change, specifically in the quarterfinals. When they were doing those the head-to-head matchups with Colton and Taylor and stuff like that. I mean, I forgot which workout it was, but Jason was like impressed me. I think it was something with rope climbs. Was it a quarterfinal workout with rope climbs? I don't know, but it was something that no one was picking Jason in that matchup of those three guys, and he fucking crushed it. And I was like, oh, Dallin was in there too, and I was like, that's impressive.
Yeah, it was there was a lot of gymnastics in that workout.
Yeah, I remember. I'm trying to remember. It was like, yeah, but
And
Jason won
and I
that
mean,
one.
look, yeah, and it's great to do it in your gym, to do it against those guys, to do it in an online format, but to do it on the big stage under the lights against those that I mean, it was Ricky, it was Jeff, it was Dallin, it was Brent, and it was Jason. And if you ask anybody to rank those five guys in terms of their overall fitness, Jason's fifth amongst those five in everyone's mind, and not in his mind, and he doesn't want to be. He's coming to these competitions to win. He's coming to these competitions to podium. He has that same mindset that Laura has, and that's why he takes it so hard when he has a bad event win. But the fact that he's able to deal with that, come back, and then showcase the way that he did the stuff he's been working on in that one, I'm excited for Jason today. We've been saying, like, what does he have to do to get that seventh place burden away from him? And I said, please, like, let's find a way this weekend. Sixth is great. Anything better than that, even better. I feel like he's going to do it. I feel like he's going to somehow going to battle and stay in this top five. I don't know if he can catch the four guys ahead of him today, but I feel if he holds that five spot, it's going to be an awesome week, like an awesome result for him that he can build upon. I don't know about this. David mentioned Ricky going to Prove, and Carolyn's asking about that. If anyone knows anything about it and wants to drop it there, they can. But Patrick and I haven't heard about that. I haven't seen anything public, so we're not going to really dwell on it or speculate now. But I did.
I will say it's like me and Brian did have a conversation last night. I mean, there are rumors, but we're in that time of the year where athletes do leave camps. It's kind of like that free agent period. I call it the free agent period, but we're in that time of year where people do make a change because But we were discussing just stuff like that and some of the rumors out there. We don't really try to spread rumors or whatever. So if it happens, we'll let you guys know, and try to confirm it ourselves. But yeah, we haven't heard anything like that. Whether that's true or not, we don't know. But again, it's a speculation. But yeah.
I want to just glance a little bit more at the men's leaderboard here. We didn't mention him yet, but Jay Crouch is kind of the last guy in that top group right now. He's only 15 points behind Vellner. We constantly are talking about how sneaky this guy is. I was having some conversations yesterday, and people are like, yeah, he's sneaky. He's top 10, but he's not top 5. I would love it if Jay has a great look. He's got three of his last 4 workouts. He's been 4th place or better. If he does that again today, 4th, 4th, 3rd, 6, 3, 2, something like that. If he manages, he could push past Vellner, Gee, maybe even Hopper, end up in a 5, 6, 7 spot. And I hope, and then if he does that, maybe people will start to talk about him a little bit more as being more threatening. So keep your eyes on Jay Crouch today. I saw him and Maddie this morning. They look good. They feel good. They're excited for a last day. The group behind that, well, Justin's kind of on his own, but another battle I just want to let you guys aware of, because we talk about how small these margins are. Chandler's in 10th. He's 5 points up on James. James has 5 points on Jorge. So there's when you get to the final day of competition, all of the athletes end up zoning in on 1 or 2 guys that are kind of like their primary competitors that day. They'll be split between heats because they're right on that 10th place cut line. But, all of those guys are having good competition weekends, some with more highs and lows, some with a little bit more consistency, and they'll all feel that they're battling for those spots today. So I think there's a lot of cool, fun races on the men's side heading into the last day, and those are some of the key spots I would be focusing on.
Yeah, I want to send a shout out to Guy and Jorge. These are 2 guys I greatly underestimated. Not in this competition, not in their fitness. I think they're both extremely fit people. They get a lot, they get a lot of I guess flack for their lack of fitness, which fucking annoys me. But these guys are very, very fit, and Jorge doesn't have the history that some of these other athletes do. But the thing is, he has to start somewhere. But and it started a year ago, a couple years ago. So Jorge looks great. He looks like he belongs there. It would be nice to see. I would really love to see him in that, him testing himself in that heat, the first heat, which he was able to do yesterday, and he did well. He dropped out of there by he only dropped down 2 spots. So yeah, he's in the first heat, but yeah, good job on him.
Let's Patrick, could you pull up the women's leaderboard? I want to just focus on like 8 through 12, 13 range there, and then After that, I want to look at the 2 events that we know about today before we wrap it up. But we talk about these small margins. 8, 9, and 10 on the women's are Brooke Wells, Daniel Brandon, Maddie Sturt. They're all on 315 points. Right outside of that is Semenza, 300, Rolf 290, and Barnhart, who I think is having a great competition for her, considering that she's coming back from a shoulder that she wasn't 100% sure about. She basically had just under 3 months to prepare for this. And I mean, she's ahead of names like Spiegel and Adams and Sydney Wells. Like, she's been pretty steady with it. Yesterday she had a 6th, she had a 17th. Everything else has been right in that 10, 11, 12 range. But I'm excited for the Wells, Brandon, Sturt little battle there. They'll be in the outside lanes of the final heat for the first 2 events. And, all of them are athletes that will feel, for different reasons, that they have something to prove. Again, the trajectories throughout the weekend have been kind of up and down for each of them. And it's going to come down to like who can close the competition well. I think it's fun going into the last day to try to identify those little groups and battles across the leaderboard. And just like we just did on the men, I would encourage you to be aware of that Wells, Brandon, Sturt battle in the middle of the women's leaderboard.
Yeah, and Paige is lurking there too. She didn't have the best day yesterday. Well, her 3. Well, I mean, she didn't end day 1 really well, and then kind of struggled. But then, and she's become one of those athletes that's really good in the duel. We saw it last year in the duel where she was like in the top 5 when it comes to those type of, sprinting workouts. Where she just puts her head down and barrels through. Being a hockey player that she is, she finished 5th in that. What you brought up about Amanda. Amanda looks good. I mean, in terms of like her, like she doesn't look as, I guess in the past couple years, she looks like she was maybe overly muscular. I don't know how I want to say it, but she looks like like a more leaner, more athletic version of herself, like what we saw when she first burst onto the scene. And it's really cool to see. And she looks like she's having fun out there.
Yeah. It's been cool to watch her. I mentioned get to talk to her husband a little bit, and it's always interesting sitting with the families because like they're nervous and excited at the same time. But I think you're exactly right. She looks great. She's doing well, and it's got to feel good for her with a little bit of uncertainty, knowing how the body would hold up against this field and a tough competition. I mean, look, don't forget that like the athletes are going to be hurting today.
Yeah.
These have been difficult events. The legs are absolutely thrashed. There's, someone said it may be not that heavy. Like, they've moved a lot of weight. You can't, like, 60 thrusters at 135. They make it look easy. That adds up when you start actually thinking about how much weight they're moving. That power pin, yes, they're moving it fast, but that's pulling big weight off the ground aggressively and fast. Like, trust me, they're sore. Trust me, they're they're beaten up, and they're still going to do things today that are superhuman and incredible because that's what they trained to do.
Yeah, it was very. Did we ever find out what happened? What Danny received a penalty, I guess, not hitting the line.
Oh, okay. There was, there were a bunch of speculation, some of them much more ludicrous than others, about what was going on. We mentioned it about Rogue. We don't actually get briefed on the totality of the rules. They tell them to the athletes, obviously, and then unfortunately we're left to kind of figure that out at times. But you had to get the weight over the red line that was on the top stair, and if you left it on the red line at all, then you get a 10-second penalty. So, people were messaging me, why didn't Danny advance? Why did Haley advance? Danny clearly beat Haley. She hit the buzzer first, but she left her weight on the red. I was told Cornway got one, Rolf got one, Spiegel got one, James got one in the final, which was more obvious. So those are the 4 that were told got them. I do hope that Halpin will put out like a full study of that event that might like identify those with a red or something like that. I know he has it, so he can maybe post it on Known and Knowable. They've been putting some stuff out. Barkley Dale has been putting some his projections out after every event. It's a really good resource if you want to go and check back, like how was an athlete doing here compared to here, and see their projected percentages for winning. So follow those 2 guys out. They've been helping us out for a couple of years now each, and they're both putting out really, really cool stuff, especially if you're sort of into the nerdy data. We got 2 known events, 1 unknown event today. The first event this morning is the pegboard that everyone's been talking about. Patrick, I want to start on the women's side. For each of the women's events, we're gonna do this. Laura Urtia, which one's gonna
Mhm.
finish better? And then besides the two of them, give me another name that you think could do well on the workouts today.
Okay. So first one's gondola, event 7. I'm going Laura on that one. In terms of another person that will do well on that, um, I'm looking at Haley. I mean, I think her
Yeah, and by
gymnastics.
the way, if you're not looking at the screen, this workout besides the horizontal pegboards has a lot of skiing and GHG sit-ups.
Yeah, which are Haley's great at doing both of those. She moves really well, really efficiently on the ski. Like she's the type of athlete, whereas she'll use the ski as recovery. Not that she needs it because this won't be too tasking on her system. But her gymnastics background will really help her in the pegboard, I think, and her body control. I think having, Hiller put up a really cool video. I don't know if you saw it, but he was doing the pegboard and I mean, and Hiller's really good at upper body pulling, and he's really good at gymnastics workouts. But even him, he was kind of struggling with the body control. There's at one point where his body had to spin around, and we had to wait for his body to kind of right itself for him to put the other peg in. I think if you have that really good body control, which gymnasts do from flipping in the air, doing the routines, everything like that, I think it's going to really benefit them. And I think Haley is someone that I think we'll really watch out on for this event. How about you?
Yeah, I do like Laura over Tia on this one as well. And then I'm gonna throw Ariel Lowen's name out there.
It's a good
Just
one.
as steady as an athlete as they can come. I think she has, like you said, great control of her body in space. I think she'll be able to manage the pegboard well. She's cool under pressure. I mean, you can make a mistake on there and come off. I had both Ariel and Haley listed as top 5 finishers for this one, so I love the pick of Haley also. But I feel like I haven't really like predicted Ariel necessarily to do well on any of the events yet.
Mhm.
Obviously, she has been. So this is one that I think is maybe a good one for Ariel.
Yeah. And then
Let's
another name just to watch out for is DB because she has that gymnastics background and body control as well, and she's typically pretty good at GHDs.
Yeah, love that pick. Uh, let's stick with the women and then go to event 8.
Mhm.
Tightrope is the name of this one. It's another workout that has the sear bell. We don't know all the details, but it's a heavy double under, which I do like. The heavy double under can come into play on this. The sear bell lunge, and then a handstand walk, which we had mentioned it. Depending on the nuance of that handstand walk, if
If there's
there's
any
any
breaking, yeah.
if you're how much unbroken you have to do, is there a ramp, is there a pirouette, like there's still a lot of details about that handstand walk that could alter that. But with what we know, same thing. If you were going to pick a couple things in the history of her career that she's not great at, handstand walking's up there for Tia. Is this another one you think Laura can
Anymore.
get her on, or do you think
No, no. The
she
handstand walk
shored
is
that up?
no long. Yeah, she shored that up. She showed that last year at Rogue when I saw her. I'm like, oh, someone's been working on her handstand walk, and she showed it again at semifinals. The handstand walk is not. I mean, she's not at that Brooke Wells, Danielle Brandon type thing, but she's on that tier below it. Um, but what I'm looking at here is like if you put those athletes side by side, like heavy rope double unders, I'm probably going to favor Tia on that. Single arm sear bell overhead, it's probably a wash between those two. Maybe a little bit leaning towards Laura. The walking lunge, Laura. The handstand walk would be Tia. So you're basically what two. You have two.
Ooh, there's only 3 movements:
Yeah. Well,
double under, lunge, handstand walk.
the walking lunge?
50-foot single arm sear bell overhead walking lunge is such a
Oh,
long
walking lunge. Yeah.
description. It takes up
Yeah.
2 lines.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. I don't. Yeah, but that favors Laura, and then but I still think the other two favor Tia, and then plus it's 3 rounds, and I think that the capacity favors Tia as well. So I'm going Tia on this, but I expect a tight race.
Any other female name that you want to throw out might have a good workout here?
Oh man, gosh,
I had picked Brooke Wells to do well on this workout. Obviously,
mhm.
she's good at the handstand walk. I think that she'll manage the other 2 workout parts of the workout really well. Similar to Ariel, like there weren't a lot of workouts where I've been picking her to do exceptionally, and part of that's just because I mean, you kind of have to pick Tia, Laura, and Gabby for almost every workout coming into the weekend, so it doesn't leave a lot of room there. But I think that this is one where I'm expecting Brooke to be in the I would say in the top 7 here, maybe 4th, 5th, something like that.
That's a good pick. I really like that pick, and I would probably agree with you on that one. But if I had to pick someone else besides Brooke, oh, frick. I want to say Emma, but Emma isn't like, again, the unknown is like for me, the unknown's that handstand walk. Like, is it complete? Is it unbroken? Are there like 2 stops? Can you rest? If there's breaks in it, I like Emma. If it's straightforward, then I don't know. I really I
I'll
don't.
throw one more out there,
Yeah.
because we did talk about it earlier. Is Maddie Sturt? Maddie Sturt's an athlete that it's kind of like difficult to identify exactly what she's amazing at, because she's pretty damn good at everything. But this seems like an event where, in her training, from what I hear, like when she competes against Tia, she's usually not that far behind her. This feels like a kind of a training kind of workout that they could do, where I could see her being within 30 seconds of Tia. And if you're within 30 seconds of Tia on this, you're going to be doing pretty well.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that one. All right, men.
So we're going to play a similar game with the men, Jeff versus Ricky, because those are the 2 guys that look like they can win right now. And then another athlete that you think can surprise, make a big move, potentially push for an event win. We know that the men's field's wide open, 6 events, 5 event winners so far. Gondola first with the pegboard and the ski and the GHD. You got Jeff or Ricky, and who else do you like?
I like Ricky. One of the biggest knocks on Jeff is that he doesn't know how to adapt. He doesn't know how to adapt. I think he's gotten a lot better on that. And I think this has shown it, because if you look at how consistent he is across all the events, and there have been some strange things thrown his way, and he's adapted pretty well. But I still think Ricky's the better of the 2 when it comes to adapting to weird objects. And I think Ricky, this is a Ricky workout. That guy, he loves. I don't know. I love Ricky in this workout. He's good at GHDs. I think the pegboard, he'll fly through that. He loves stuff like that. I think he's going to do a good job on that. In terms of who else I liked in this one, a lot of people say, "Oh, Vellner," but Vellner says himself that he hates those like type of movements because he's a gymnast. Doesn't mean he's really good at like that stability that you would expect from a gymnast. But
and he doesn't have a very fast rate of cycling GHD sit-ups compared to some of the other top guys.
Yeah, exactly. I like Guy in this.
I mean, Guy's been solid across the board. That's not who I was expecting you to pick.
Yeah.
But when you look at what he like yesterday, Guy's, I know he won the last one. I was impressed with the 10th place finish on the first one. 2,000 meters rowing, 60 thrusters, and those log muscle ups. Like, the field's so good. He, the longer the workout goes, generally the worse that he does. Middle of the pack finish on there. I was impressed. I think that's about what he will do on this one. Also, kind of middle of the pack, which is fine. The guy I'm looking for on this one is actually Dallin Pepper.
Okay.
One of the things that Dallin, everyone knows he's great on the Echo bike. He is similarly good on the ski erg, to the point where what he said yesterday the first day about the Echo bike, that he can pull on that ski erg at a rate that's at or above what most other athletes can and come off of it feeling fine. I also think for a big guy that he's figured out a very efficient technique to keep up on the GHD sit-up. So as long as he can manage that pegboard, and the guy's strong as hell, I mean, and he's just good. So I'm curious to see how Dallin does on this. I had picked him in one of my top 5 picks. I also had picked Justin, but Justin's been a little bit strange. And I was thinking back to the Tier Cup event where I think they were going together on the ski erg there, and Justin was ripping on it, and it was impressive. But he had to spend a lot more energy than Dallin to keep up with him. So, like I said, I want to talk more about Dallin at the end of the weekend, but I do think he can do well here.
Who'd you think I was going to go with?
It just surprised me with Guy. I thought there were a bunch of guys he could have picked.
Yeah. I don't know. You know who I really want to see do this, and I think might surprise some people is Karavis.
Yorgos.
Yeah.
I think Yorgos is going to save his best finish of the weekend for the final.
Okay. It's a barbell cycling.
If it ends up being barbell cycling,
Yeah,
That's his
you're right.
sweet spot, and that's where
Especially
it would be cool for him to end it that way. So let's see what it is. But that's what I've been thinking about Yorgos over the last day or two.
yeah, but I mean, I'm really interested. I think he might actually do pretty decent in event 7. Now, but anyways, event 8, I like Dallin for this one. He's actually pretty decent on his handstand walks, but I think for the men, I think the heavy rope double unders will play a big part in this. And I think Dallin as well as Brent are probably some of the best when it comes to heavy rope double unders. But I really like Dallin for this. And I think he'll manage the handstand walk. But in terms of Adler and Ricky, that's a tough one. I'm gonna have to give this one to Adler, but I do really like Ricky because I think Ricky's the better handstand walker of the two. But again, it all depends on if they're allowed to break that up or not. Because if they aren't allowed to break it up and someone messes up, they'll have to go back, and it changes the complexity of the workout for them, especially with 3 rounds.
Sweetie Pippi is from Finland, so a little biased with the Yona pick for double under workout, but he's obviously one of the best at double unders up at the top of that heavy. I mean, a lot of volume of double under workout in the Open this year was Yona, Henrik, who obviously is not in it right now, and Dallin. So Yona is a good pick. I like that one. I had also thrown the name Jay Crouch out there for this one as a guy to watch. I think, similar to what I said about Maddie, this just feels like the kind of workout that someone who's really fit, that doesn't get a ton of maybe attention, can kind of have a sneaky top 5 finish on. So I'm looking at both Maddie and Jay to have a good event here. I actually think Ricky's going to get Jeff on both of the events to start the day today, but I think that Jeff will keep within 2 spots of him wherever Ricky finishes. And that's exactly what Jeff needs to do. I think that scenario plays out really well for the overall thing, because it sets up, if that ends up happening, it sets up for a final where Ricky can afford to go for it. And Jeff also can still play his game. He doesn't have to have any event wins relative to Ricky today, similarly to Tia, but he will want to. He'll want to get as much breathing room as possible. So those are a few names that we're looking at. And then, let's see if Ricky's able to pip Jeff by 1 or 2 spots and cut that gap in half going to the final. That's pretty cool. Hopper, I think this means Hopper, not Hooper.
Hooper.
Yeah.
Mitchell
No, he corrected itself here. Downplaying the pegboard and probably figured it out. Yeah, I think that's I think
100%.
Hopper will definitely do better than he looked in the video that he posted. It's cool that he posts something like that and is willing to have fun with himself, but Hopper has plenty of chance to work on that, and of course, like, JR is constantly pursuing having things to give him the best chance to practice and refine those skills. And they were, as I think many athletes were that maybe didn't advertise it, they were on top of finding a way to practice that pretty soon. So I think in general, the athletes are going to handle this horizontal pegboard fairly well. There will definitely be some who struggle, and again, we don't know the standards. Like, I'm assuming that it has to be unbroken. And if you drop, you go back to the start. I kind of hope it's that. And if it is that, then we're going to see, I think we will see athletes that will get caught up in a race, decide to take the risk, come 1 or 2 short and miss it. I mean, we've seen it on pegboards before. So to me, it only makes sense that it would happen here. And when that happens, I hope that it's more along the lines of like what happened with Sydney Wells and Danny Spiegel in the wall walk complex. Like, she went for it and she missed it, and she could be upset about it, but she shouldn't be.
Yeah.
It's worth it at that point to take that risk. Like, that's kind of that's what you train for. That's what you compete for. So I'm excited to see us get to the 3rd and 4th pegboard, see athletes coming back at the same time, look at each other. Somebody goes, the other one is going to have to decide, do I go too, or do I wait and see? And if you wait and see and they do it, you've lost. But if you go too early and don't trust your body and you miss it, then you've also lost. So like, someone's going to have to make that decision. It reminds me of Sand Clash last year. Luka Jukic and Kalian Souza were looking at each other and they had this pirouette, and it was a big shoulder fatigue workout. Luka went for it and missed it. Kalian watched him. And Kalian's like, okay, if you hit it right here, you got me. But as soon as Luka missed it, Kalian kicked up and did it, and then it was game over for Kalian. So I think we may get a chance to see something like that, which is fun. And be on the lookout for that, especially if you're on the venue and you can see everyone. If there's 2 athletes getting there at the same time, watch for them to kind of gauge each other before making that decision. And hopefully the broadcast will catch some of those moments too.
Yeah, I saw something similar at German Throwdown between Moritz and I'm drawing a blank. Boss Hard.
Colin, yeah.
Yeah, it was the last 2 events. It was kind of like, hey, you going? You going? I don't know. You go first, type thing. And it's like, but uh, yeah, yeah, it was fun. Good stuff.
Cool. Well, that's we're less than an hour out from the start of the final day of Rogue. We're really proud of the work that we've been putting out. We've got Renato from Fury Photography and Marius with Truth Films here with us this weekend. All the content we're putting out is thanks to Strike Movement, who's continuing to partner with us at our major competitions. We would be remiss not to mention HGR CBD, who's been supporting us all year long. If you're on site and haven't said hi to us yet, don't be shy. Come up and say hi. We'd love to meet you guys. Take a picture, whatever you want to do, if it's just a handshake, but always want to know your name. It's always funny when people are like, oh my God, thank you. And I'm just like, who are you? Like, I want to meet you. I want to know who you are.
Yeah.
So please say hi if you're on site. Check out the articles. I think they're pretty cool. I'm kind of really happy that I've been motivated and had the time to write some of them. Hopefully they're representative of like how cool Rogue is, how impressive these athletes are. I'll try to put a couple more out over the next day or two. And yeah, Marius has been putting up some highlight reels on Instagram. We've been able to feature some of Renato's work with the pictures we're doing. The content in general, across the board that people are putting out here at Rogue is very cool. So, if you get a chance on a Sunday, scroll through, see what Jason's been doing, Peter, Talking Elite Fitness, Barbell Spin, Known and Knowable. They're all putting out great stuff. And there's going to be much, much more to come. Some of like the tier guys, they have their best guys here on site. They're going to be capturing some stuff and releasing some things too. So it's been a good 2 days. I'm excited for the last day. I think that there's just as much drama or more in store today in terms of the tight battles on the leaderboard that we've had the first 2 days. So
yeah. Cool. Oh, shout out to the Mitchell and who won the strong women, but shout out to the 2 champs on that.
Her name is harder to say. Her name is a little harder to say than his. It's
but
Inez Carrasquillo.
Yeah. Where is she from? Puerto Rico?
Yeah, Puerto Rico, Ukraine, and the UK take the podium for the women's side, which was pretty cool. And on the men's side, I mean, it was also an international podium. Mitchell Hooper was, the class of the field. He had nothing worse than a third. He did finally get an event win on the second to last event. Half door, basically his upper body pressing is the only difference between him and Hooper, but really the battle was for second and third, and it shows a tie for second between him and Tom Stoltman, the local from Scotland, getting on the podium. It had to be an incredible moment for him. So 6 podium spots, 6 different nations represented in the strongman. Hard to ask for more than that.
Yeah, and I thought it was really cool because obviously this is Thor's like, actually he never did the Rogue. Yeah, he never did Rogue. He's never done Rogue in terms of, he's done Rogue events, but not this one. So, he announced his coming out of retirement a couple of years ago. So for him to come out, hopefully he sticks around, but maybe this will fuel him getting second because obviously, he was kind of the reigning, defending, strongest man. And now that Mitchell Hooper's on the scene, but it was really cool that Half Door came there. He kind of recognized Hooper, raised his hand, kind of like passing of the official passing of the torch. Because Hooper came in, a lot of people kind of looked at, he never went against Thor, and that was really cool. So shout out to them.
You never know how they feel about each other privately, but on the competition floor, it was nothing but respect, and I enjoyed watching that.
I enjoyed doing that too, and it's hard not to like someone like Mitchell. He's a really outgoing guy. He's really, we've had dinner with the guy, and he's a really cool dude. And then Thor is, he's a really cool dude too as well. So big guys. Yeah. So cool. This is great. Everyone that showed up, thanks for waking up with us. We got a lot of cool stuff. Brian will be on with probably Lucy again for a couple recaps. I might hop in on one. And then depending on what our schedule's like tomorrow, we might wait a day or so and do an official recap. But either way, this has been great. It's been fun. Can't wait to head on over. Head on over there, and we got some other cool stuff planned today. Thanks again, Strike Movement, HER CBD. Brian, thanks for your time. Thanks for getting me out of bed so that way we can do this. I'm all pumped up and ready to do this. So, but yeah, thanks everyone again, and as always, be friendly, our friends.